I don't know. I feel like making funny intros is like way harder than I really expected. Like I did it a couple times, and now it's like having to come up with one every time. Like it's fun, don't get me wrong, but it's tricky. And if my brothers are out of town, I feel like I don't have a lot of content to work with. Um, are you even listening to me?
What's up, everybody? My name is Kason, and welcome back to another War of the Visions Final Fantasy Brave Exvius video. Today is going to be my ultimate guide to Esther. For the guide summary today, we've got the character breakdown, so I'm going to talk about her stats, her resistances, all those types of things. Going to go through the bread and butter section to describe what she does well, which she does a lot of things very, very well. Going to talk about vision cards, Espers, TMRs, equipment options, Truststones, all those things. Going to tell you what skills to turn on and off, and ultimately end it with an arena showcase. So we got a lot to cover today, so let's get into this. So the first thing here in the character breakdown we're going to go over is this stat pool right here. And the first thing that should jump off the page is that she has an astronomically high attack, HP, and agility stat. They are all top tier. It's pretty frustrating how good she is statistically. Like, she just blows other characters out of the water. In terms of power creep in this game, I don't think she's just like way better than every other character, but in terms of stats, she kind of is. She's just ridiculous. All these three stats are top tier. Her dexterity is above average. It's ranked about 41st out of, I think, 166, 167 units, something like that. And her luck is just ever so slightly below average. So luck is really the only stat that she's missing. She starts with 6 defense innately and 0 spirit, not including any sort of passives. Coming over to the master ability, she has the standard lightning party master ability. So she has 15 lightning attack for all lightning allies, as well as that 10% HP for lightning allies. She has an extra 10% HP for herself on top, and 10 slash and pierce resist. Now, this is crazy because that is not included in these resistances down here, which you should see and immediately go, holy shit, these are incredible. So 15 plus 10 means she has 25 innate slash resist. 15 plus 10 again means 25 innate pierce resist. That is an insane stat. Like, there are so few characters who even get resistances that high. To get 25 for both and then 15 strike and 10 missile, you can already tell this chick is incredibly tanky versus physical, and the one weakness she has is magic. It's negative 15%. She is almost glass cannony versus magic, but she is one of the most bulky units in the entire game versus physical. She almost is giving Engelbert a run for his money. It's pretty insane. For her status resistances, she has 50% to poison, 50% to paralysis or paralyze, and 10% charm resistance. At least it's a little bit versus these Sotiles coming in, but it's probably not enough to save you, but that could be a little bit useful. The standard 20% water resistance and negative 10 to earth. Her strengths, I could go on for days about this. It's ridiculous, but like I said, she's a stat monster. Her stat pool is just insane. She has great physical bulk. She has debuffs on her attacks, which we will go over later in the video, and she has really solid movement. Now, it's going to come off as she is 3 move, 1 jump standard, but she does have a passive that can bump that up to 4 move, so she does have above average movement in my book. She has the precursor main job, and then she has paladin, thief as sub jobs, and she is a cost 100 unit. Now, into the bread and butter section, I think she has 4 passives, which are pretty much all usable. However, she has one passive in particular that I think is a must-run passive essentially every time you play Esther in PvP, and that's Ball Lightning Barrier. It gives her 20 defense, it gives her 40 defense pen, which both are just really, really incredible things as passives, and I think they kind of make the unit and just really buffs up those stats that she has already. It decreases her magic resistance by 8%, but as we talked about already, she's already stupid weak to magic. Making her a little more weak to magic is not going to be the difference maker. Like, if she's getting nuked by some huge magic attacker, she's probably going to die anyway. Just make her really, really good at what she does, and don't try and overcome the super weakness that she has. That's kind of how I think about it. So I think this is a passive that you pretty much always want to run on her every single time. Her best single target attack is Stormbrand. Now, this is something that is upgraded in her EX job from Bolting Strike. I think it's her best single target ability, bar none. First of all, it decreases the single target resistance by 20 for 3 turns at the start. So before the damage even happens, this does 20 single target resistance down, which is fantastic because a lot of units in the game now are starting to stack up unit and AoE resist as ways of mitigating damage. So dropping the single target resistance is really good. 165% modifier is solid. It also has a plus 30% hit chance. So this is really good for most things because not only is it good against just general units, but this is also useful against evasion who are trying to dodge you. Plus 30% hit chance is essentially the same as Ibarra's Counterman Slash or just the Blade Soul Job's Counterman Slash. So that can be something really useful. It has 4 uses, which is great. 24 AP is a little high, but it's not crazy. And the nicest thing about this, the big kicker, we already talked about how bulky she is. Well, she has some sustain for herself because she restores 20% HP when performing a critical hit. So if you can stack up those crits for her, it just gets even better. She has 2 main job buffs in her kit, but the one that I think you want to run basically every single time is Magnetic Force. Now, this is a fantastic ability, especially against physical units, which is who we want to bring her against anyway. Physical damage taken, 50% shield 3 times for self. So this is a fantastic physical shield that she puts on herself. And not only that, but her and her allies next to her get 15 AoE resist. AoE resist is just one of the best things in the game. I try and stack that up as much as I possibly can pretty much anywhere I go in PvP. So getting 15 for the party along with a physical shield is a fantastic buff. I pretty much always try and run this on her when I can. And lastly, I know this is weird that it's in the bread and butter section, but her limit break is just really, really good. It gives her 50 defense pen, and then it's a 200% modifier in an AoE. This is one of her longest range moves, and then it decreases slash resistance by 38% for the targets for 3 turns. So this limit break is just absolutely nuts. So basically one of the biggest things about her is you really want to try and be limit breaking people. That ability is just too damn good not to. For vision card layout, I have 2 main VCs listed here, and the first one is the Dreamiest of Eggs. I really do think this is pretty much just her best in slot card. It is tailor-made for her. It gives the party HP, slash attack penetration, and unit resist, 3 buffs that she just absolutely loves. It gives herself 30% attack, and she will also get HP and crit, which is unique only to her. It's just really, really good on her. I highly recommend running this on her if you have the card. The other main VC that I just want to give a little shout out to here though, and just talking a little bit about what Esther is as a character. She is, I think, a bruiser, and I hate that term, right? But she's a very physically bulky DPS. However, she is so bulky, it's possible to run her actually as a tank. The problem is she doesn't have any innate hate. She does have Taunting Blade in her sub job, but getting her to have hate is kind of tough. The thing is, Vow of Love gives 30% attack to the party. Now, just as a comparison, Scorpion Sentinel gives 50% attack to the party. Obviously that's a 20% drop, so it's not great, but it also gives critical evasion, which is a nice stat to have, and it gives 5 hate to whoever's holding it if it's in the main job slot. So in this situation, if you were wanting to run Esther as a tank, and let's say you have another physical DPS and a magic DPS, you could run Vow of Love in the main slot to give her 5 hate, which is essentially 3 attacks worth of hate. You could run the Ibarra VC as a team VC to give 20 AoE resist to the party, and you could run Esther's VC on someone else, like a Cloud or something, to give that 20 unit resist to the party. So now you have 20% damage mitigation to literally everything in the game. Esther has 5 hate, which is essentially, again, 3 attacks worth of hate. And something you could even do if you really wanted to is throw a producer's bow tie on her. Well, now all of a sudden she has 7 hate. And the biggest thing about this is not hate that can be dispelled. If somebody uses Dispel Spread on, let's say, a Charlotte who used Attract Wall to get her hate up, since she procced that by a buff in the game, that will be dispelled. If it is innate hate, it does not get dispelled by things like that. So just a little bit of information here. I don't necessarily think this is the best way to run her, but I did run it to pretty darn good success. So if you choose that you want to run her as a tank, you could run this as a main VC, and I would run these 2 as the other main ones. That being said, now that we have that out of the way, For sub VCs, I think a Guion is really, really good for her. Essentially gives her 10 slash attack penetration for holding it. It also gives the party HP, slash attack, and accuracy, which are just really, really good things for the lightning element. Again, you could run Vow of Love in the sub VC to give her only 2 hate. That's really only for like buff manipulation though, because you're not going to hold aggro longer than 1 turn. The other team VCs, Wishing Upon a Demon is fantastic. Scorpion Sentinel is incredible. The Sleer vs. Raychaz VC is really good. I think Coral can be a really nice sub if you don't have the Sleer vs. Raychaz VC. They both give some acquired AP to the party, and Coral gives agility to the person holding it rather than agility to the party. And if you are looking to really stack up against those missile attacks, you could run Frederica's Dream in a party slot as well. For favorite Espers, my absolute favorite Esper definitely is Odin, and I think because you can essentially run it in a couple of different ways. So for a bruiser slash tank build, you can easily stack up 15 slash resist, 15 missile resist, 25 human killer, 7% attack, and 7 accuracy. This is just an all-around really, really good Esper for her. This is something that I run on a lot of my tanks, even though it's not considered a tank Esper. I just think Odin's really good. It gives agility, it gives resistances. It's fantastic. If you're looking for a DPS Esper that's not named Odin, especially because you might want to run Odin on another character, I think Scorpion Sentinel is fantastic for her too. You can get 25 lightning attack, 15 slash attack, and 16 crit damage. So this is essentially 40 guaranteed modifier with an extra 16 if she crits. It also gives 6 slash resist and 6 missile resist, essentially guaranteed along the path, so it does give her a little bit of bulk as well. For an accurate Esper, if you're going against evasion, I again do recommend Odin. You can get 22 accuracy on this Esper, you can run 15 slash resist, 25 human killer, and 7% attack. You also could just do the accuracy and the bulk if you chose that, and it's another reason why I just love Odin so much. It's just extremely flexible. Now, the last Esper I want to talk about is a versus Earth Esper. And now, normally, I don't condone trying to fight the element that is strong against you, right? Lightning is weak to Earth, but I'm going to show you in a video or two later that Esther is so ridiculous and the lightning cast is so strong right now that there are situations where they can beat the Earth team. And I know some people already know about this. It's not guaranteed to happen every time. Like, they certainly don't counter the Earth team, but they can hang with them pretty darn well, and it's kind of insane. And for those situations, I think I recommend the Golem Esper. It can give 25 Earth resist and 25 Pierce resist. That is such a huge stop, a huge C block to Oberon. Honestly, it's going to nerf his damage so much. It also gives 15 defense and 3 crit evade. So if you're just really looking to bulk Esther up against those Earth boys, this is the Esper to do it. Now, coming to equipment options, we're going to go over the weapons first, and there's absolutely a best in slot for her, and it's her sword, Asterisk Alpha. 30 slash pen and 30 lightning attack is so ridiculous on a weapon. I just can't even understand it. When this first came out, I essentially just saw, holy shit, this is a huge buff to Cloud. With her VC and the Asterisk Alpha, he essentially just gains 65 slash pen. Well, I mean, the same thing goes for her. If she's using it and the VC, she just has an insane amount of slash pen. She can carve through basically everybody in the game. This sword is just so ridiculously good. However, if you are running her with Cloud, so if you have both of them in the party, this is a unique sword, which means you can only get one in the game. So somebody has to hold the Buster Sword. Visually, please make it Cloud. Don't be that guy who's running around with Asterisk Alpha visually on Cloud. Don't do that. But actually, technically, you can use either one. So however you want to run that, that's up to you. But I think this is a very serviceable weapon. This is wrong, 30 slash pen. I just realized I wrote this wrong. This is 15 slash attack. But just know that Buster Sword can be a very serviceable option also. This last weapon here, I really don't recommend this. However, if you, let's say that you don't have either one of these swords, because they are limited time swords, and I assume that you probably have this if you have Esther, just because it was on her bingo board. But this weapon right here, the Sky Cutter Greatsword, is Schutzhelt's TMR, and the only reason I even mention this is if you don't have one of the other ones, it does come with 15 accuracy innately on it. So if you are trying to make sure you're hunting those evasion enemies and you're having trouble hitting them, you could potentially run like an accuracy set on this weapon, and I could see you hitting them pretty decently well with that. Armors and accessories, I think Alexandra Ring, I pretty much recommend on like every unit in the game. It's just so darn good. 20 accuracy and 5% elemental resist is fantastic. The pod, coming from the Near Reincarnation collaboration, 6 agility and 8 unit resist is great. Black Garb, specifically the defense version, not the dodge version, 17 defense and 20 defense pen is really, really good for her. Same with Survival Vest, 18 defense, 10 unit resist is fantastic. That's a really bulky version of Esther. And one that just came out, the orange sunglasses, I think could actually be really, really useful for her. 20 accuracy versus evasion can really help you. And 30% acquired AP. One of the only weaknesses this chick has is she's pretty AP hungry. So if you can stack up acquired AP as much as you can, I think that's a really, really good thing to do. For favorite TMRs, I have a handful here that I stuck here. My personal favorites are probably Ziza's Bells, and this is actually a TMR I very rarely use on characters anymore, but like I said, Esther is pretty darn AP hungry, and one of the biggest things on her kit, like I said, is her limit break. It's one of her highest range moves, it does so much damage, it gives her defense pen, it's something that you really, really want to get off in a fight if you can. And because her other stats are so ridiculously good, she oftentimes doesn't need two actually like good buffs. She can easily magnetic force and then pop bells and be just good to go. I think this is essentially just, you don't have to worry about AP, which for her is fantastic. So this is probably my #1 favorite. I think all these other ones really have a place though and are really, really solid. If you're looking for AoE resist, unit resist, you can either use one of these for a party buff. This is an agility buff. This is a versus like evasion. You can use a luck buff, which is Luel's TMR. And one sneaky one that I think I talked about in my last video, I just really, really like, is Sweetheart Ildira's TMR. This gives her 30 unit resist plus 1 move and jump. The thing about this one, when I want to talk about really, really quickly, like I said earlier, one main VC you could use is Vow of Love. You can even use like a bow tie on her. Let's do some quick math, okay? Esther starts out with 3 move, 1 jump, okay? If we equip the bow tie on her, now all of a sudden she only has 2 move and 1 jump. That kind of sucks, right? However, if we equip Thief Lore on top of that, she now has 3 move, 1 jump. So she has a standard amount of movement and she has 7 starting hate. So that's essentially 4 attacks worth of hate that she will draw for the team. Now, what you could do is turn 1 or turn 2, use this Sweetheart Ildira TMR. So she's running tank. She will now all of a sudden have 30 unit resist, and she'll have an extra 1 move and jump. So which essentially means she is running into the fight with 4 move, 2 jump, and an extra 30 unit resist on top. I think this is a really interesting way to play her if you are trying to play her as a physical tank, and just something to consider if you're trying to try her out that way. For favorite Truststones, there are 4 different pairings of sets that I really like to use, and I'm going to show you essentially which ones I like and why. So the first one I'll talk about is HP and AP together. So AP on the offense, HP on the defense. This is a really bulky set. HP in general just makes her really, really tanky, especially if we're trying to get as physically bulky as possible. And the AP set cuts down on those AP problems that we talked about before. I think these can be just a really good general set for her as long as you're not fighting evasion. If we are fighting evasion, accuracy and luck is absolutely the way you want to go. She does have an accuracy buff in her kit, and then she has a plus 30% hit attack, so she has ways of overcoming accuracy, but she still needs help. If you are not running accuracy and luck, you're really going to have problems hitting evasion, so this is the absolute no-brainer. If you're going against evasion, run accuracy and luck every single time. Another general set compared to the HP and AP, this is basically just the more offensive version of it, is Attack and TP. This is actually a set I run on Cloud quite a bit, and I think everybody shits on the TP set, but I actually don't think it's as bad as you think. It gives extra acquired percent AP of 25%, which can be the difference of getting off another skill or not. So essentially, these two are the same, except this is the bulky version, and this is a slightly more offensive version, giving you a slightly higher attack stat and 10% defense pen stacked on top. The last one that I do like is just the Agility and HP set. Agility is just a really good rune to have overall, and especially if you're trying to tune Agility to make your buffs work a certain way, I think Agility and HP can work pretty well. In terms of actual Truststone passives, I've just made an example set down here, and this could change very drastically based on who you're going against. First of all, I always like to try and have a generalist rune, and that's HP up 10% and luck up 10%. This essentially means this is something I can throw on like any single character and it will work well. Another really general rune is critical evasion 15 and debuff resistance for elemental resist 25. Now I know this seems like a really niche rune, but it's really not. There's going to be more and more characters coming out these days with elemental breaks. For example, if Ibarra walks up and tries to Wailing Storm you, there's a 1 in 4 chance that that won't drop your lightning resist. And if it doesn't drop your lightning resist, you're going to take significantly reduced damage than you would if you were just getting like 7 attack type resistance on a passive. Now, that doesn't mean I don't like them. I'm putting them on this rune right here, Slash and Pierce Resist 7. But I think this is a really, really good passive just to have as like a general thing. I like to try and get these 2 general Truststone passives so this last one can be really flexible based on who I'm going against. I could run Slash and Pierce Resist. If I'm going against Oberon, I could do Earth and Pierce Resist. If I'm going against Little Leela, I could do Dark and Blind Resistance because I don't want to get blinded against her. I think you see where I'm going with this, but this is an example set I would run on her defensively. For the offense, I think Attack and Defense Piercing right up are a really, really good pairing. They're just a really good rune choice that you can use on a lot of different characters, and it's fantastic for her. I think Acquired AP Up and Dex is also really good. As long as you're not using like a mage, you probably want some Acquired AP Up. It's not a bad idea, and Dex is just a really good general stat too. This is a very niche rune for her. However, I think it's really good because that Stormbrand ability that I talked about earlier, where she recovers health when she crits somebody, this healing power up actually can increase the amount of health she gets back. So even though it's kind of a niche passive, I do think it has a use on her, and the Slash Tech 10 is also just really good on her. Next up is target selection. I've made 3 little columns here. Green check mark is basically a full go, absolutely try and fight them. The water squad, pretty much whoever it is on the water team, try and fight them. You should be doing pretty well against them for the most part. You do really well against Astrius and Celeste, Titus, different characters like that. Attackers like Lucio, who don't have insane amounts of penetration, are really, really going to struggle versus Esther. The same with Pierce attackers. And I didn't put Oberon here because he's Earth, but like an attacker that has a lot of defense pen but doesn't necessarily have Pierce resistance can still struggle versus Esther. She has shields, she can stack up her Pierce resistance with one of her abilities. They just really struggle with her. And the same thing with somebody like King Mont. She can just really carve through him. She has too much penetration, and he doesn't have like a protect and shell type thing to give to himself. So pretty much any type of unit like this, she should do really well against. Now, I kind of mentioned this before in the video, but normally the Earth element would be sitting right here on this, like, do not fight under any circumstance. But to be completely honest, Esther just does pretty well against them. Like, I'm never going to target them specifically, but she can hang with them, absolutely. She does easily as much damage to them as they do to her, as long as it's not magic damage. But for the most part, the main Earth units you see until we see Queen Mashri are Zazan, Oberon, Ketone, and Noctis, who are all mostly just physical attackers. So she can actually hang with them pretty darn well. Leela is just a really, really good unit, so I don't necessarily like target her, but I also don't avoid her. I think Esther does fairly decently well into her. Also, characters like Cloud, so he is a physical unit which we're trying to target, but he has ridiculous amounts of penetration, so he is one of the characters that can kind of carve through her to a fairly good extent. And then evasion units, so not just Elena, but evasion units. I don't necessarily target them with Esther, but she can do pretty well into them. If you're running an accuracy and luck set, you've got a good amount of accuracy gear built in, and you're using your accuracy moves, she can do well into them. However, you do have to take the time to make sure you have the proper Truststones and you're using the proper skills and things like that. If you're just blindly going into it and you have some sort of like attack and HP Truststone set, you're probably not going to hit them. So just keep that in mind. She can do really well against them, but it's not necessarily my favorite target. And for the big no-nos, you're pretty much just going to see big magic attackers. I have faced against an Esther on many, many occasions with Ibarra, and my Ibarra has one-shot her quite a few times. Like, she'll just walk up and limit break her, and depending on how they're built, they can easily die on one hit. And if they're not dying in one hit, they're probably dying in 2. So I just really try and avoid these really big magic attackers, especially somebody like Sodali, who could easily just like charm her or her teammate, and now you're fighting each other, and just never a good situation. So this, for the most part, is who I would try and target in PvP. Now, for the skill selection screen, I normally go out to WoTV for this. However, I've moved this into my presentation. I've had a couple of people request basically just like a list of what skills I turn on and off and things like that. It's not going to be perfectly just on off because some of them are situational, but I'm going to go through the skills and talk about them and basically how I think about it. So first thing, like I said, Ball Lightning Barrier is an incredible passive. I have this on every single time. I don't even think about it. The next one that I use most of the time is Thief Lore. It gives her 12% agility, which is just really, really useful, and the +1 movement. I love this as a passive. I try and run it on, you know, Charlotte or Ravice or whoever I have that has this type of passive, and I just like it a lot. The only one that I really ever sub out for it would be for Holy Knight's Protection, which is 12 defense and 12% HP. So if you were looking to try and just get a little bit more bulk, I think it is serviceable, but it's definitely not my favorite compared to Thief Lore. I think on very rare occasion, you could get some use out of acquired AP up if you really are maybe on like a shorter map and you don't want to run bells and you're really just trying to stack up as much AP as possible in like one turn. I could see a situation like this niche situation where you would want to run acquired AP up, but for the most part, you're not going to run this. In terms of counters, Static Discharge and Paladin's Guard are literally the exact same skill, so whichever one you want to use, both of them are really great. 45% reduced physical damage is a ton, so this is just a really good anti-physical ability. However, I do think Quick Action definitely has some use. I've used this before, again, on somebody like Ravice or something, when I've gotten an extra turn when I shouldn't have. So I think this is definitely a useful skill, and honestly, I think this is just your own flavor, whichever one you prefer. So this one makes you more bulky, and the other one makes you get your turn quicker. For the main job skill selection, these are all the attacks up here. So first of all, Bolting Impactor is her most basic one. I'm going to leave this on every single time because it is her least amount of AP and it's her least damaging ability. So really, she's only going to use it when somebody is close to death and she needs to use an ability to kill them, or she's low on AP and she only has like 15 and I want her to be able to use an ability, so always keep this on. Bolting Slice, I keep this on as well. It's a nice AoE in front of her. It's a weird like 3x3 grid, but it gives her a little bit of bulk, and it basically ignores counter chance, which can be really, really nice, especially if you're in like a lightning mirror match where you're trying to avoid reflexes and things like that. Or let's say you're going against an Astrius and you don't want to proc that pressing advantage. It can be a really, really nice skill. Stormbrand I also keep on. This is that one I talked about that's just a really incredible skill. I don't need to talk about it anymore. And her job level 25 skill is a physical barrier break with 4 range. So this is pretty much her longest range single target move that she has, and it's only 20 AP, which is pretty cost efficient in terms of what she has in her kit. So I like this ability quite a bit. For her main job buffs, Magnetic Force, this bottom one, I put on every single time. It's the AoE resist buff and also gives her a physical shield. It's fantastic. Storm Guardian gives Pierce Strike and Missile Resist of 20% for herself. So if you know who you're targeting and you know that you're targeting a lot of like Pierce and Missile teams, absolutely turn it on, let her use this on the second turn. It can be really good. Also, if you're going against evasion, it gives her 30% accuracy, so that could also be really good. However, I mark it as situational because if you're going against a slash heavy team that's not evasion, which there are plenty of those out there, or a magic team or something like that, which you should ignore, but you're not going to want this buff on. So this is situational. Just try and determine who you're going to be facing and whether or not you should turn it on. For the sub job skill selection, precursor sub job, if I'm running this sub job, I'm turning both of these on. I think Bolting Wave is really solid, and it's only 18 AP, so it's even more cost efficient than our job level 25 skill. And then Chain Lightning is a nice little AoE, and other than her 3x3 grid in front of her and Taunting Blade, this is her only other AoE attack. 25% chance to inflict confusion. Probably not going to happen very often, but if it does, that could be an absolute game changer. So I like both of these skills and I turn them on if I'm running that sub job. The other sub job that I run quite a bit, and it really just depends on the map and what kind of role you want to run her in, whether she's a DPS or a tank or whatever, is the Paladin sub job. Blade Bash, I think you can mostly leave this on. 20 AP is not too bad, 191% modifier is pretty good. However, if you want her to be able to use some of those other skills, for example, there might be a situation where that Stormbrand skill, she might not use that because it could theoretically do less damage than this one. So if you're running into that issue, then turn Blade Bash off. I'm turning Saintly Healing off. It's shit. It's crap. Sentinel is situational again, so it just depends on what you want that like second turn buff to be, because there are going to be times where she will use Sentinel on the second turn if she's closing in on the enemies quickly. So it's up to you whether you want to have that on. Taunting Blade, for the most part, I turn this on. The only thing about this is there's a good amount of times where she will get one buff off and then use Taunting Blade, and she could theoretically be almost out of AP on this situation. So make sure you know what map you're working, and is it going to be a detriment to you if she gets Taunting Blade off on the second turn. If it is, make sure you turn it off, and you might not even want to run Paladin subjob. Divine Grace is another bad skill, turn it off. And Immortal Spirit I think is mostly on, and it's probably most of the reason that I'm using the Paladin subjob. If I'm using Paladin, it's because of Taunting Blade and Immortal Spirit, and I want those in that match. If it's not what you need for that match, then use a different subjob. It's basically just these two skills that you're looking at. In terms of the Thief subjob, this is something that I basically never use in PvP. I think the only niche use it really has is if you're trying to fight evasion units. And for this to actually work, I think you need to run a TMR, almost like a Sweetheart Ildira TMR, that gives you added movement, and you have to be running the Thief Lore subjob to get your movement up to like 5 or so. Because this sneak attack, to actually be able to get into a position where you're attacking from behind for that guaranteed hit, it's just extremely hard to get. And to be completely honest, the AI is weird in this game. Sometimes it won't even do that. So I really don't recommend this for PvP. I think it could maybe have a use in PvE, but for the most part, I just don't recommend this subjob. In terms of Limit Break, like I said, Bunny Bolt Blitz is fantastic. I pretty much always leave this on. It unfortunately can get used on a second turn, and she can be fresh out of AP. But again, that's why I recommend some of those Truststone sets with either a TP or an AP set or something like that, to make sure that you're not running into a situation where she just blows her load on like the second turn and can't do anything. So that's it for the skill selection. The last thing that we have on the video is the Arena Showcase, and let's check those fights out. Okay, so before we jump into the fights, we've got the snapshot here of what our team looks like, or at least what Esther looks like. She is only level 115. I know. I wish I could have gotten her to 120. Couldn't Whimsy Shop farm enough when she was around last time, but that's okay. We'll get her there soon. So she has 9,900 HP, almost 10k. She has 1689 attack, 51 defense, and 97 agility. As you can see, she is an absolute stat sheet stuffer, and let's see how she actually works in a fight. We're going to start off with an easy one here, a full water team of Astrius, Titus, and Celeste, and then we'll slowly get into some harder fights as we go on. Let's check out this first one. Okay, so fight number one, we've got Resnick, Charlotte, and Esther as the team. So I essentially just wanted to make it to show you that Esther can be the main damage dealer on this comp, and she can just kind of carve through them herself. Resnick is essentially set up so that she won't do damage in this fight, and that she's only going to buff. So she gets the Teachings of the Strongbolt off on Esther. Charlotte's going to pop all of her buffs, Teaching of Self-Preservation on her, and now Esther has bells online, so she should be good to go to kind of just light these guys up. The water team's going to get the Hastica buff off all at once. They must have watched my Titus video. Just kidding. So Release the Void comes off of Charlotte, and she takes that, I think, reasonably well. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So our team gets debuffed a little bit. Charlotte walks up at the Lightning Strike on Celis, which is really great. And now we have Courage online too. So Astrius comes up, only 372 damage to the Astrius, or to the Esther, and then 468 on the follow-up attack. So you can see clearly she is tanking this extremely well. So Charlotte's going to go, and then Esther can light these guys up. So 10,000 damage to the Astrius. It was not a critical hit. And slowly we should just carve through these guys. And 7903 on the Titus. So obviously that one we should win. It's 3 lightning versus 3 water. But let's do the elemental disadvantage this time and see what happens. Okay, for this second fight, the team comp's going to be a little different. This time we have Cloud, Esther, and Ibarra. We're trying to bring out the big guns here because we're going to go against an Earth team to try and see how it goes. So as you can see, the build is a little different here. I have the Alex ring to get that elemental resistance up and make sure I'm accurate enough to hit any sort of dodgy Earth teams. And I also have the Valve Love card on her because I want her to tank, because she is going to tank that Earth team much better than Cloud or Ibarra will. I realize that this is not a fully optimized Earth team. I am going to try and get a second Earth fight in here as well, just to show you guys, but we're going against a 120 Ketone, 120 Winter Venera, and a 115 Oberon, and let's see how we do against this team. Okay, so the battle starts. Ketone's gonna pop bells, and we're gonna pop bells on Esther also. So I think I mistakenly turned off her magnetic force buff, but you're gonna see that it works out pretty okay regardless. So Cloud gets his Dragon's Pride, comes up, does triple slash, cuts Ketone down to just below half health, I would say. So we have Sentinel on Esther. So she should be fairly tanky here. So Oberon is going to jump. Does 3190, I believe, which I think is tanked pretty darn well considering the fact that she has the elemental disadvantage. Malevolent Lightning does a little more than half to Oberon. And now Esther should be able to walk forward. Limit Breaks kills the Oberon and does a little bit of damage to the Winter Venera. And at this point, this fight should be easy. Yeah, we're basically just going to whittle down Winter Venera very quickly here. And as you can see, that was pretty much a stomp. I know that this is not a fully optimized Earth team, so I'm going to find a better one for you guys here and show that we can beat them too. Okay, for the second fight against an Earth team, I want to pause this real quick just to show you what my Esther looks like. Again, she has almost 10,000 health. She has 1,500 attack at 1499, 92 agility, and then 63 defense. Once we get into the resist, though, you're really going to see how tanky she is. She has 52 slash resist, 56 pierce resist, and 20 earth resist. This Earth team is really not going to hit her that hard. I know we have the elemental disadvantage, but you're going to see how crazy this is, considering that I have two 115s in my party, and I'm going to take down the probably meta version of a full Earth team. So this is the team that I'm going up against. I have a 120 Zazan, 120 Noctis, and 120 Oberon as my opponent, and you are going to see how we can beat them, even with a lightning team. All right, so the fight is going to start. Zazan's going to put bells online, and we're going to have Resnick buff the group. I'm going to put a bar up on the top of the screen, and I know that it's probably going to be a little bit annoying, but I forgot to turn on Do Not Disturb during this fight, and I was recording it on my phone, so I'm getting Snapchat notifications from my family, and I don't want to put their names on the screen. So we walk forward, get the buffs online. Cloud triple slashes, bringing Zazan fairly low, and we're actually in just enough range that Noctis walks up and gets a taunting spell, which is a very interesting move to use, but it looks like he wants to grab hate. So with the limit break on Noctis, he tanks it fairly well, but Cloud gets another triple slash off, killing Noctis and proccing the courage on Zazan. So far Cloud is kind of the MVP in terms of the damage in this fight, but you're going to see in terms of tanking how well Esther does, and Cloud is not going to do nearly as well. So Oberon deletes Cloud in one hit that did 11,000 damage on his jump here, and you're going to see Esther do quite well against Oberon. So he comes in, limit breaks, one-shots the Resnick, and you're thinking, oh, this is going to go bad. Hits Oberon for 4,600, so just over half health. Royal Rend only does 600 damage to Esther. Lands the stun, but we come back, we kill him for over 4,000 damage. So you can see, like, Esther was pretty easily going to 1v1 Oberon there. Obviously, we needed tons of damage to come in from Cloud. But, you know, Esther's not going to 1v3, but that's the whole thing, right? Like, you shouldn't be able to tank Earth that well as a lightning unit. It's pretty insane. It's honestly got to be really aggravating for Earth players, so I am sorry. But let's check out our next arena fight. Okay, so for our final video, we're going up against a full dark team here. Unfortunately, couldn't find one with Leela, Joker, and somebody in this matchup here, but I found a 120 Leela, Kane, and Dwayne here. So the biggest thing is I want to show you how extremely well that Esther can tank some of these physical DPS units. So let's get into this fight, and should be a good finale. All right, getting into the final fight, and this would be a great time if you guys haven't already to please hit that subscribe and like button down below if you are getting value from this content. If you're not getting any value from this, then, you know, you can go watch somebody else, and I totally understand, so no big deal. But we get into this fight. Cloud pops the Dragoon TMR as usual. Esther's running forward, trying to get her buffs on, so Cloud almost one-shots Kane. And then we Taunting Blade for 9,300 on the Dwayne. Sorry, I said Kane, not Dwayne. But he does have re-raise, so he comes back up. So, fortunately, we're going to be able to see how well they tank it. So, 802 damage from the Kane limit break, and then Dwayne follows up with 1,100. So, from 2 attacks from Dwayne and Kane, Esther has only taken 2,000, and just got hit from Leela, too. So, that ×2 Dark Chain, she was still over half health to that point. So, just a really good showcase of showing how much damage she can tank. I mean, she's taking only 3k from Leela, and Leela's a monster, so yeah, this is pretty much just a showcase of how ridiculously good Esther can tank physical units. So this might get a little awkward here at the end, because I think I remember this fight. Leela is actually kind of dodgy, and Cloud has no accuracy on him. He is not built that way because he's only allowed to triple slash people, and he doesn't have the AP to get triple slash, so he's just going to attack and miss. unfortunately, eventually, Esther is going to have enough AP and enough accuracy to hit her, which she will do right there, proc the courage, and apparently Cloud has enough accuracy to end it. So thank you guys so much for watching that kind of a little bit painful ending, but I really appreciate you guys so much. It has been a pleasure to make this video. I wanted to put more and more polls out just to figure out which character guides you guys want to see. Let me know down in the comments down below what kind of video you want to see next time. I know one video that has been requested, or a couple of videos that have been requested that I want to put out at some point. One is just kind of like a general team building guide in terms of how I mesh units together, how I form, you know, decide what vision cards to put on them, different things like that. So I'm going to do something like that. And I'm also going to do a guide in terms of choosing, how do I pick my Truststones? How do I pick what Truststones I create and different things like that? So I know I'm going to make a couple of general guides like that coming out soon. Hopefully you guys can look forward to those. And yeah, thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day.